It has been 4 years since my very first book, WitchCraft Cocktails, was published. My goal with this book is to teach you to make magical drink recipes, aligning your ingredients and take inspiration from this and even make your own. And really, I want to give people the background knowledge that I have as someone who is a professional witch and also been a professional bartender, worked in a distillery, and adding that in with a witch's touch. I am Julia Helena Hattis. I am the author of this book. I'm excited to commemorate the occasion by telling you a little bit about what to expect to this book if you don't have it already, maybe some of my favorite recipes if you do, and then as well a little bit about my journey to coming to a point to even become an author. So if you are into witchy drink recipes, if you have any of my books or WitchCraft Cocktails, or just into some inspiration for the spooky season, come along for the ride with me. I'm excited to talk to you about my book, WitchCraft Cocktails. First, let's have a drink though, because we are celebrating Nastrovia. This book is on magical drink recipes separated by season, so a little bit of a seasonal approach. There's astrologically inspired, Wheel of the Year and the Sappets and all this different stuff. Basically showing you, if you read the whole book and not just the recipes, on how to make magical drink recipes. But my intention was really to cover the basics. Yeah, there's great recipes in here, tried and true, a wide range of recipes that really could show you the minimum and the maximum of what you can do and really be a bouncing point. So I do cover those basics of things like infusions, syrups, shrubs, magical properties of different ingredients, magical energy of the spirits based off of what they're made out of and things like that. That way you could make these yourself, make your own inspiration, even take recipes in here and alter them. So I put it in a seasonal backdrop because I felt that this was not just for people who practice magic seasonally, but also the perspective of the astrological seasons and the themes of that season and the various moons. So there's definitely like recipes in here, like milk moon, beautifier, things like that. So that was why I felt the seasonal way was a good way to put fresh ingredients in and tie it into witchcraft in a lot of ways people can understand, but also like there's drinks in here inspired by the various astrological seasonal energies and things like that. Really just trying to put together a maximum and minimum of what a beginner or advanced person, either witchcraft or mixology, can find something in here. There's a little description in each recipe that talks a little bit about, the inspiration, so you can understand what's in there. Each of the recipes has a tarot card or a crystal to work with, help enhance the energy, because I do come from a crystal healing background and did tarot readings professionally. I put a little appendix in the back, classic cocktail recipes, so you can kind of have a base to work with. I also put a list of intentions, right? What herbal ingredients or fresh ingredients might be good for these different things. I will say, just so you know, I am limited by what ingredients I use in the book in this case, so just keep that in mind. One thing people don't realize with publishing is that you can't necessarily put everything you want to a book. There are limits. The publisher often has a word count limit, and I often which well beyond that. My last book, I did cut 10,000 words. I also do work with non-alcoholic recipes, not necessarily in this book, although a lot of these same principles apply to mocktails and stuff, but on my blog, and actually since I've been doing this, I have been doing non-alcoholic drink recipes because in the magical community, there's lots of people who do not drink. There's reasons throughout our life that we do not drink. Maybe it's you're deciding not to drink and you're sober, or there's certain things, medication, health, whatever. And beyond that, the witch shop that I worked at actually hosted AA meetings. So I was always very aware, because my colleagues and my mom even, and people in my life weren't always people that were super into alcohol, so I always tried to make non-alcoholic versions. But like I said, you can't always put everything you want in a book, and there was just such limited time. I do have still, mocktail versions of a lot of these recipes sitting in my computer, but we just weren't able to translate that in a timely manner to this book. There's just limited space. I'm a big proponent of, alcohol in moderation, anything really in moderation. So I just want to preface that all of the ancient spiritualities that used alcohol in some way had rules and regulations. That being said, if you are someone that is interested in non-alcoholic drink recipes, I do have them on my blog. My point is to say, you can't really always do everything in one book, but did the best I could with the space that I was given. And I really just wanted to give you know, people the knowledge because there was no book like this at the time. And that being said, I do cover extra knowledge, expanded information on different spirits, bitters, things like that in my second book, Moon Magic Mixology, but that will be a different video. So yeah, a lot of these drinks in the book are versions of what I made behind the bar. Let's talk about a few of my favorite recipes. So as I said, some of these drink recipes come from when I was working behind the bar. With some alterations, it has to be something people can make at home reasonably. Persephone's Descent is one of my favorite ones. I have this photo of where I was making this. My grandma came over to my mom and stepdad's new house, and so I was making margaritas for everyone. And particularly for me, Persephone is a deity that I've always felt really drawn to for multiple reasons, and just also how, you know, she's a deity that embodies the light and the dark. Goddess of spring and youth, and then half the year she's the queen of underworld, right? And so I made this drink recipe, and there's like this photo that I love of my grandma in the background because this is really delicious. It has black salt, right? It's that darkness and protection and grounding. But this is food grade black salt, not the stuff you get at your witchcraft shop. That is not food grade. Let's just clarify that. Tequila, which I use for a reason. If you want to like find out more about that, you can watch my demo on the bewitched egg that I have further back in the channel. You know, I've got pomegranate obviously, and it's so delicious. My top favorite is gonna be the Prosperous Pumpkin. I love this so much. This one was actually for a Samhain party. This actually does use bourbon, nutmeg for wishes and Jupiter blessings. We have ground cinnamon, you know, for manifestation and prosperity and luck. We've got cream for the moon, and you know, the moon bringing things to abundance and harvest. Maple syrup for money abundance. The Awakening Mule is another one. So basically we were doing a Yule party at the witch shop that I worked at, and so I put together this drink recipe. Oh my god, and the spiced cider I brought too. So these are ones where I was like testing with and without alcohol because some of my coworkers didn't drink. I did a Earl Grey ginger syrup. That was something I crafted behind the bar for the associations of bergamot, which is in Earl Grey, and ginger, you know, pomegranate seeds, rosemary, just all of these different things layered in there being associated with Yule and this reawakening of energy and helping you plan for manifestation. There's so many fun stories behind a lot of these drinks, and I will say, like, one of the ways talking about using these recipes, right, of not just witchy cocktails, but also the layers of which imbibing this stuff, like each ingredient being added with intention, those magical layers, is really super powerful. And then there's other ways to use it, if not just that drinking something like that makes it a ritual and intentional experience. The other thing is that, like, leaving these as offerings or matching the ingredients in the drink to a spouse. That way you're ingesting it on the inside, and then maybe the candle dressing is the same. And so it's like the inner and outer resonance. And becoming in alignment with the things that you want to draw to yourself. And so ingesting a potion in that way that has those layers of intention, and then having that correspondence of that potion on candle dressing or oil or whatever it can be, where you can on certain ingredients. So there's so many layers, but also this is a drink that, like, I, you know, have a little extra, or maybe I make a little more than enough, leaving it as an offering for deities. They just drink this up. They love it, and it's really great to leave as an offering for, like, you know, bringing in abundance and stuff. If you want to see specific demos, I'm going to be doing regular drink recipes, especially as we head into witchy season. I'm going to be going through all of that stuff. So my intention with this book is just to really show you how you can make magical drink recipes in various creative different ways, whether you're adding a fresh ingredient, whether you're making the syrup or a shrub, or just even like selecting the base alcohol or switching out the base alcohols. I've had people message me and be like, hey, can I swap this for gin? And like, I mean, I can't always promise the flavor is gonna be great, but I'm like, yeah, I think gin would be a great choice for your intention. Go ahead and give that a try. Like, this is what I love, is improvising and making it your own based off of your flavor preferences, based off of what your magic is. And it can be as little or as complicated as you like. You can be adding a little bit of a fresh ingredient, or it can be making your whole own custom thing. It can be even just intentionally selecting, you know, your drink that you're having for the night based off of your knowledge of what's in there. So how did this book come about? When I was of legal working age, started working at my local metaphysical shop, started leaning into not just working behind the counter, but professionally doing energy work, tarot readings, things like that. And when I was of legal age, kind of on a whim, I decided to take a bartending class. And I didn't really expect it, but I absolutely just fell in love. Now I will say this was like a dive bar bartending class. We were playing like with colored water, pretending to make AMFs very quickly, but like the instructor would leave these little tidbits of kind of the craft cocktail history of San Francisco. And this was like in 2016, you know, the craft cocktail movement had, you know, begun and things like, but it's not quite the same way that it is today. And in San Francisco, there's such a rich history. There were so many like craft alcohol brands that were really blossoming, people getting back into farmers markets and things like that. So instantly, right away, coming from this professional witchcraft background, I was like, why couldn't I combine herbs where edible, right? Like if I'm combining different herbs for money, love, things like that in my candle dressings or in my oils, why couldn't I combine those things into a drink recipe? That was the beauty of the craft cocktail movement, is that really leaned in using fresh ingredients and really unique ingredients too, and layering them in through, you know, your bitters, your syrups, rubs, you know, every little aspect. It was just really exciting. And so coming from that background and in this kind of like, in this flourishing era of the craft cocktail movement, I instantly was like, why couldn't I, you know, do WitchCraft Cocktails? So I, you know, saved the domain name and instantly just wanted to move up as quickly as possible in the bartending industry. I will say in the San Francisco Bay Area, you gotta work multiple jobs, obviously now, but even back then, like 3 different jobs to be able to just afford to live there and exist. And so there was a time where I was doing, you know, my energy work, tarot readings, working at the shop, and then doing my bartending shifts a couple times a week, and then, you know, Thursday through Sunday working at a distillery. I loved working at the distillery because I really was learning the in-depth process of making these craft spirits, you know, how everything down to the type of still you're using, obviously the base ingredients. That's a big part of what I lean into in my books and in my work, are what are these spirits made out of, what's the history behind them, how does that inform the magical energy, but also even like, you know, what material is the still made out of, what kind of water are they adding to cut, because there's different types of water. And so just all of these different things can enhance the flavor, and also from a magical perspective, the energy. And it's really like the process of fermentation and the stories behind all of these spirits and how they got to be where they are is tied to alchemy, and it's tied to like ancient worship and things like that. And so I really loved it. And eventually I ended up working at a bar that did allow me to share my creations that I was doing at home, you know, for my witchy friends that would come over for the Sabbaths or the full moons and things like that. I was able to do weekend specials for different things. So I had like a drink for Mercury retrograde, or for the first harvest, or, you know, for Leo season or an eclipse and things like that. And my friend there that I was working with, you know, was just kind of like, why don't you put this stuff in a blog? You don't have to make it super complicated. And so with that, I kind of finally utilized the domain name I had saved and started like posting a couple blogs and things like that. So I definitely have guests that would come in and be interested. I brought a tarot reader in from the shop that I was working at, go to my local witch shops and try and get people like, hey, like, you know, do your gathering over here. You know, I even hosted like a workshop because it was the blood moon. So I was like, Blood Moon Bloody Mary workshop. And I was so excited to teach a class on making magical Bloody Marys. Everyone who showed up was only someone who was interested in the Bloody Mary. They didn't care about the magic part. Witchcraft didn't go through its spurt in popularity that it did in the pandemic. This was 2016, 2017. It was just such a beautiful time for me being able to express myself in that way, but it also just wasn't the time. Anyway, though, I saved all of my recipes and, you know, was still working on stuff behind the scenes. And so actually some of the drinks in the book are altered versions of the drinks I would actually serve at the bar. I really have to say, I've written 4 books now, and it's been an amazing journey coming from someone who, when I was a young kid, I struggled in reading and writing until I found science fiction and fantasy, and then I loved it, and then I wanted to be a writer, and then I went down that path, going all these different winding and weaving ways, and everything just coming together in a way I hadn't imagined. It's just hard to envision it when it hasn't happened, you know, when no one else has done it yet, right? Your path is unique to you. And so sometimes it can feel like we're jumping all over the place, but a lot of times we take the knowledge that we've gained on these different paths with us and combine them together in really special and unexpected ways. And that's one thing I really like to take with me, is keep moving forward and trying to find your way and opening those doors, because a lot of times things will come together in a way you didn't quite imagine. Follow the inspiration. Things might not turn out quite how you expected. Maybe you try that out and you're like, but then you learn something from that you take with you, you alchemize down a new path. I think the best part of this journey is being able to look back and see how I went against the grain. His family didn't understand practices like this. Now, you know, for the most part, my family approves of what I do now that I'm a published author. But there was a lot of resistance when I first started, a lot of misunderstanding. And even when I started doing these witchy drinks behind the bar, like, you know, I had ideas and inspiration, but I didn't quite believe in myself. And people weren't interested. Witchcraft was not booming. It was much more of a niche. And now a lot more people are into this stuff. And so it's just been so exciting to really connect with everyone, connect with all of you. Every time someone tags me, you know, shares a drink or a memory with me, and like, you know, how they love working with the recipes in the book or use it at different gatherings or things like that. And I just love it so much. It brings me so much happiness and being able to connect with everyone. And really, thank you for everyone that has left a review. If you have this book, you loved it, it would mean so much if you left a review to me. That's like makes my day. Or if, you know, you have any questions about specific, you know, drinks, or maybe you have your own memory, you can share that with me in the comments.